Hola, welcome everybody. So excited that you're here. Welcome everybody to Semillitas Outdoors Conversación. This is Transformative Play in the Outdoors, and I'm really excited because we've invited some just amazing guests, a panel that is going to just add layers of like amazingness to this conversation. So I'm excited to get going and get started and see who we have queued up for you as we talk Transformative Play in the Outdoors. We've got CJ, we've got Elizabeth, we got Justin, we've got Kevin. So excited. My name is Jose González, he, him, his, the founder of Latino Outdoors. It's just such an astounding privilege to be able to say that. But as a way to kind of get into this, let's do not rapid fire, but rapid seed burst introductions as a way to kind of see who's here with us. So we're just kind of going to go around circle. We'll go CJ, Elizabeth, Justin, and Kevin. Just share a little bit about this is your introduction. Let the audience know who you are. CJ. And unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is CJ Goulding. I use he, him pronouns, and I am coming to you from New Jersey, which is Lenape lands. I am a lover of people and a weaver. I like finding connections between things, and I serve as the executive director of an organization called Boys in the Wood that centers Black men, mental well-being, and time spent in nature.
Beautiful. And then Elizabeth.
Hi, everybody. My name is Elizabeth Castro Maldonado. I go by the pronouns of she, her, and also go by the name of Liz. I'm coming to you guys live from Fresno, California. Happy to be here. Happy to share this space. I am a volunteer with the Fresno chapter here in California with Latino Outdoors, who provides beautiful opportunities for youth, families, a lot of multi generational play and joy in the outdoors. It allows pride in our culture and sharing this safe space with others.
Gracias, Elizabeth. And unless you correct me, I'll go by Liz, but we'll follow accordingly.
Yeah,
Justin.
your door is good.
Hey everybody, my name is Justin Torres. I am from the Los Angeles chapter of Latino Outdoors, pronouns he, him, they, them. I work for the Coalition for Engaged Education, where I work with youth touched by the justice system, ages 14 to 24. And a lot of my programming involves the outdoors, transformative play, and just tapping into finding the self and promoting leadership.
Beautiful. Kevin.
Hi, my name is Kevin Fernandez. My pronouns are he, him, and his. And I reign from Sacramento, California. And I'm a volunteer with Latino Outdoors here in Sacramento. Have a history of being a kayaking instructor for many years, was a former outdoor educator. And right now I'm in sort of like the health tech world, doing work there as like daily 9 to 5. Happy to be here.
Beautiful. Gracias, everyone. So I'm excited you're all here because you've come with such layers of experience. And Semillitas Outdoors, this is the third annual Semillitas Outdoors. It's really a celebration of youth, our kids, like all of our little semillas that are part of Comunidad. And not just acknowledging them, but really getting to see how they're a critical part, right, of all the work that we do. And so we kind of really want to start with that question, thinking about both the work that you do, but also your own lived experience, right? We also say, I think you were a kid once as well, may still be. What does it mean for you to really like think about Black, brown, indigenous, joy, youth? Like, what does it mean to center that for you in the outdoors, in the work of connecting not just community, but youth to the outdoors? Justin, I'll throw it over to you, and then you can popcorn it out to others.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jose. So yeah, my family, I did actually grow up camping. We would go out to the Kern area, and that was like my first exposure to the outdoors, to camping. Um, and I definitely found it as a transformative space for myself. I found that, when I was in the city, in the community, I was always getting into trouble. There's so many places you can't go, shouldn't go, things that you shouldn't do. and the outdoors was just a space where I could fully explore myself and also my relations with my family and others. And I definitely take that experience and utilize it with the youth that I presently work with. I know that a lot of the youth that I work with have that same experience, right? Where, you know, right outside the doorstep could be a dangerous situation, or even inside the house. And that becomes their worlds, these negative cycles. And when I'm able to take them out, to these different experiences, even just 30, 45 minutes away to the Angeles National Forest, or even further out, places that they've never been, I help to facilitate redefining what it is that the individual and the group wants to define their world as, because it's a totally different world, a totally different experience, and we like to use that as a stepping stone, to kind of recreate and redefine how they'd like to see themselves, as an individual, in the community, in their family, and in the world. I'll popcorn it to Liz.
Hey, thank you, Justin. So for me, I think that what it looks like to center, black, brown children as well as our indigenous youth in outdoor spaces, I think it really comes down to honoring their identities. Letting them know by your own shared experiences, sometimes sharing little pieces of yourself, pieces of what we've been able to experience, and then also that transparency of, hey, maybe this is, some of the first times I've been doing this, or hey, you know what, I didn't grow up doing X, Y, and Z, and I've been learning about this, but it's something that, hey, it's okay to be new to things, and it's okay for this to be your first time ever camping, or your first time, ever being on a kayak, and then you don't even know how to swim, right? So honoring that, letting them know, hey, that's okay. Um, Sometimes I know for myself growing up, I grew up in a rural area in the Central Coast, and I wasn't able to have as many experiences as the things that sometimes I would see online, right? I would see movies of families maybe going on camping, or youth going on a science camp that their parents took them to, and letting them know, hey, even if this is, your first time doing these kind of things, this is still your space. And reminding them that, hey, are sometimes, things don't seem to be ours, or we don't see ourselves doing certain things because we haven't been exposed to that, or the people around us are like, no, that's not for us. So just letting them know, hey, opening those doors for mindfulness by moving with the intention of what we're telling them, how we're explaining things to them, right? Because I know even for myself as an adult, learning how to recreate outdoors and do so safely, I really had to be able to say, hey, I don't know this, or hey, this is new for me. And knowing that, hey, even though I'm new, I'm still deserving of all these different opportunities of learning at whatever age it is, and asking those questions, trying to be as inclusive as possible. Um, for myself, I used to work in this program. It was funded by state funds, and we were taking low income and Latinx youth to the outdoors, doing wellness activities to be able to increase their self-esteem and their resiliency, and really tying in and showing those examples of, hey, in nature, this is all free flowing. It provides you opportunities and that curiosity to say, hey, this and this are so similar but yet so different together, really creating this different ecosystem of diversity and inclusion, and letting them know, hey, things may not be, sometimes we have these elements that come in, these are hard rainfall, different things, and allowing them to see nature as free flowing, as themselves. And I'll stop there because then I'll just start going off and off. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to Kevin.
Yeah, thanks, Elizabeth. Yeah, I have a lot to say. I'll try to keep it brief, but I think something that you said that sort of pops out of my mind is just having that communication with children about it's okay to have like new experiences, right? Like it's okay to feel uncomfortable as well. And also like tying it back to your own feelings of something new. And maybe this is your own first time like leading a hike or leading an experience or something like that. So, um, it really kind of brings me back to my introduction to the outdoor space, which was outdoor science camp. Like I grew up in South Central LA, South Central Los Angeles, and didn't get a lot exposure to the outdoors. But in sixth grade, our class got shipped off to the woods to experience the outdoors, and also how it all ties in with science and whatnot. Though in hindsight, it would have been great to have more of like an indigenous perspective to things. However, that truly like blew my mind and just kind of opened my world to the experience of how someone like me, someone my skin color and my background, like we don't have access to this, though maybe some other folks that came along within that trip was like, oh yeah, my parents go camping like every summer. This is like a a ritual for us. So I think just exposure and just relating yourself back to their experience, putting yourselves in their shoes is like truly powerful for sort of centering our Black and brown children in the outdoor space. I'll pause there and popcorn it over to CJ. CJ.
Yeah, I think I started my career in the outdoors like before when I separated my childhood experience with nature from this career path. When I started doing that, I think my first experience is leading trips. I realized that some of the idea of centering Black and brown youth was like creating spaces where they felt safe. And so hopefully I pronounce this right, but semillitas, the little seeds. Sometimes it's more so about preparing the soil that you're putting them into, the experience you're putting them into, than it is about the seed itself. We're not trying to make the seed better, but it's like we center them by surrounding them with the things they need in order to try these things and to grow. So I have to shout out my mom from any green thumb knowledge that gets dropped in this. But yeah, it's about centering the soil that helps the seed grow.
Awesome. And thank you, CJ, because you reminded me, right? Part of what is kind of a Latino outdoors outing experience is that it's intergenerational. When people would often ask, is this a youth program? Yes. And it's a youth program because it includes as much of the family as possible in that way, which doesn't always fit the model that maybe a funder was looking for. Thank you all for that. So one of, for this next question, I'm going to ask you to kind of take us to a moment. And so, for example, some of the moments that have stuck with me, even when I was doing Latino Outdoors outings, was getting to see how kids were kind of very visibly wrestling with the reality of being in a new experience, while also just once they kind of got it, they're like, okay, cool, and then we're on. I remember one of our first Latino Outdoors outings in the Central Valley of California in Modesto. We had a little boy, and the outing was come to the park on a Sunday. It was a state park, riparian ecosystem. He gets off kind of the bus, so to speak, looks around, doesn't look like a city park in terms of having like the play structure and the grass in the same way. He's like, where's the park? And being able to tell him, well, actually, this is a park. It's just a different types of park. And here are ways to kind of enjoy it and be safe. And then when he got that, it's like, oh, okay. And then went over and kind of started playing and getting kind of really engaging with it. So little moments like that really stuck with me about what those experiences were. So for this next question, I really kind of want to ask, like, think of a moment, an experience where you were active in providing one of those connecting moments with a semillita, any age range, whether they were like kindergarten or like high school. It's just that you were there, you were that connecting point. So take us to one of those moments. And with that, CJ, I want to start with you.
Okay, that means I have to share the first idea that I had. So I think there were two specific moments that stood out to me. And in an idea of, it wasn't just like the introduction to the outdoor activity for the kid, but it was some connection to some ideas that maybe we'll talk about in this conversation, like representation and equity and things like that. And so, two really quick ones stand out to me. One, I was leading canoeing and backpacking trips in the North Cascades. And what they had presentations at the end of the week, and one of the kids, he had been in his hat all week. He'd been pouting. He didn't want to canoe any of that. He was presenting, and he was like, "I learned to like the outdoors because CJ did." And like in the Pacific Northwest, I realized I was able to be a source of representation for him in trying these new things outdoors, because they had hired somebody who had zero experience and let them go and take kids out into the wilderness. But that's a different story. The second one was similar. I was helping some kid, helping out a youth conference in the national parks, and one kid was asking me why I was wearing my Jordans at this conference, and why I was wearing them outside, like in connection to nature. And I was like, listen, hey, basically the short version is I was like, we are here to authentically be ourselves. And he was like, I can now see the connection. He didn't see them as separate things, but he was like, I can bring me from inside the city to me being outdoors. They can be the same person. So those are two quick moments that pop up in my head, or two moments that pop up in my head when I think about that introduction and how the outdoors played a role.
Yeah. Which, by the way, you can search engine that article. CJ's like Jordan's in the outdoors, so it's a really good read. But CJ, you can pass it on.
Oh, to choose somebody, I choose Elizabeth.
Right. Thank you, CJ. So my experience with providing semitas increased access to leadership spaces. I led a program that had a very unique opportunity to allow youth ages 13 to 17. So pretty much freshmen to seniors. We got about 10, 10 to 15, depending on the cohort. These youth that would give us ideas on where we wanted our youth access trips to go. So this was a nonprofit program. We provided free outdoor trips to low-income Latinx youth and their families. Two different programs. One was called the Grow Program in an area of Fresno County, and then our coastal program, our KCEY, in Kings County that organized family trips to coastal areas. So we were able to take them to some beaches across the California coast. Some of our trips included kayaking trip in Santa Barbara. We also had a winter camp up here near Sequoia Park, as well as some other outings to various forests, preserves, and beaches. All in these, really, I think I most enjoyed the family trips, because in these family trips, you really saw some, multi generational healing. Sometimes you would have, little guy, mom, and we had a group of first graders that we took to Morro Bay, and dad, and we were turning over some rocks on the beach with some state park guides, and I could see the hesitancy in one of the dads to kind of pick things up and engage in the play that we were having, with some vegetation and wildlife. And then when he just saw, his daughter's smile light up and present him this little, kind of mushy, yucky little sea creature, his face just lighted up. And then I could just see how excited he was to discover new things alongside his daughter. And I saw that play and that wonder, kind of spark back up into him. And it was such a beautiful experience to be able to see that and to know, hey, we were able to take part in something that goes far beyond, this moment, something that really goes into their family, something that they can take and share when they go back home. That therefore maybe even encouraging their family members, right? Just by letting them know, hey, I went on this trip. Sometimes in our community, I and my parents migrated here from Mexico. So I think especially that brings a different awareness sometimes, that even feeling safe accessing different places, or just knowing like, hey, no one's going to come and ask us why we're here or what we're doing here, and having safety and exploring those spaces. That was a really good one. I'll go ahead and just share this other one that I had with one of the youth programs. This is the only youth trip. We went to the beach, and kind of similar to that first encounter, I saw one of these youth, just being very standoffish. He didn't really want to play in the sand. He didn't really want to run around or do anything. And kind of as the day went on, I saw him kind of breaking down, trying to maintain a certain look, right, or a certain demeanor. And I saw him allow himself to be a child and to engage in play, which sometimes can be, can give us a little hesitancy because we think how is this going to how are we going to be perceived, or what are people going to think if we're turning over rocks and doing little things like that. And I think it's beautiful to see that self-esteem build up, that resiliency, and themselves honoring the fact that, hey, no matter what age we get, years are to be lived, and that play, that wonder is something that is always inside of us if we honor it and allow it some space to grow and share with others. I think most importantly, I'll go ahead and, like I said earlier, I'm a big talker, so I always keep going. I'll go ahead and pass it over to Kevin.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate you sharing too. CJ, you kind of sparked an idea in my head. I had one idea in my head, and then you like totally blew it out because you had such a good narrative. So like, right, like being your authentic self, right? One of the things that I find hilarious and also awesome at the same time is when you see like Raza at the beach and they have like a full blown outfit out there, like no, water shorts, like you just have like your people in jeans, like shoes, and any type of big shirt, and they're out there just chilling, in the water. It doesn't matter. And I bring this up because when I was a kayaking instructor at UC Berkeley through their Cal Adventures kind of a recreation arm, we used to get like a lot of kids that were coming through. We had like partnerships with nonprofits, and so I had the privilege of like leading a lot of these outings out into the bay. And for a lot of these kids, like coming from Oakland and some like parts of the Bay Area where it wasn't like the outdoors wasn't really accessible, even though the bay was like right there, right? And some of these kids never got a chance to go kayaking in the bay, or never even got a chance to really think about like, oh, we can go in the water in the bay. But one of the sort of like moments that popped out into my head was like putting on wetsuits. So Cal Adventures had wetsuits to borrow, and for some of these kids it's like their first time putting on wetsuits, right? So like no one tells you you're supposed to like have like bathing underwear underneath, or just like not wear jeans underneath your wetsuits, right? And so this wasn't like a guideline or something that Cal Adventures had really thought about at the time, because they came in thinking a lot of these kids had worn wetsuits before. So it was just seeing kids and like guiding them through that process, and then having that like experience out in the water, and just having them have that like, oh, like this is a whole new experience, and like it's okay to be uncomfortable, right? Like it's okay to be joking out in the water too, like about being in a wetsuit and feeling kind of silly and all of this stuff. So I always like snuck in empowering kids in those situations, like, hey, even though you're like feeling weird in these wetsuits, like come help me bring the paddles out, or like you can be in charge of like helping tell everyone else about how to be safe out there in the water. So like empowering them in the water as well to be leaders. So I don't know, this ramble of thoughts there, but hopefully that made sense. I'm gonna pause there and pass it off to Justin.
Wow, I really appreciate everyone's stories. Yeah. So I want to say it's a reoccurring story. And what I mean by that is, the first time I took youth out camping, we set up a hammock, and on top of this being the first experience that many of the youth had been camping, surprisingly for myself and some of my other staff, it was their first experience in a hammock. And the hammock became the space year after year where the youth could kind of just be by themselves or with another student, and just experience something new, experience something comfortable it's always my favorite photos that come from this like one hammock to start with, but now ever since that happy mistake, I we got like 4 or 5 hammocks sitting around because the camping experience can definitely bring up a lot of excitement, a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions, and having this space where the youth can just kind of calm down, collect their thoughts, be by themselves or with others, and at the same time experience something new. I just love walking up to that hammock or the multiple hammocks and asking them like, "Hey, how's it going?" And just seeing that super chill, super just kind of content feeling that they have, and just also broadening my perspective of providing those multiple spaces to engage in those different feelings, emotions, safe spaces, and yeah, that's also. I know that mine was a bit short, but I mean that definitely is one of my favorite instances that is reoccurring year after year with my youth in the outdoors.
Love it. Thank you. You also reminded me of a time when I was doing outdoor education and we had kids. Yeah, it was their first time as well. And one of their question was, you know, we were sleeping under the stars kind of thing. Some just like with the time that I first did it, I didn't know I had to have a sleeping bag. So Kevin, to your point, right? There's just an expectation. If you're going camping, you're supposed to know what a sleeping bag is, and you're supposed to have it. I showed up with my cobija. My cobija said Marcos, and it's like, oh, got it. I've never owned a sleeping bag before. But having the kids kind of say, it's the cucuy out there, and rather be dismissive about it, be like, well, don't worry about it. That's silly. Be like, don't worry. We're gonna set up a cucuy perimeter zone, and then that way we will kind of check throughout the night. And it's kind of one of those both fun but also serious ways that we would engage. And for this next question, a bit of a challenge because I'm going to ask you to keep it to one word to one sentence. So we'll see how we do. And the question is around thinking of terms that we often use in this work, such as equity, access, diversity, inclusion, belonging, and justice. So thinking about the word justice in the outdoors. I want you to think about justice in the outdoors, 3 parts. What does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? So justice in the outdoors, what does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? And try to see if you can challenge yourself to a one word to one sentence response for each of those. And for this, whoever's ready first can kick it off and then pass it on.
I think the word that comes to mind for me is chances.
For me,
Whoever else wants to jump in.
yeah, I can pop in. For me is kind of like acknowledging your own presence, regardless of who you are.
I think for me, when I think about equity, justice, and inclusion, what it means for me is to feel safe, to be authentic, and to feel like you belong. What it sounds like, I feel like it almost even sounds like a laugh, like a breeze, and maybe a little crunch of the leaves. And what it feels like, I think it feels like a hug. Feels, I think if that's yeah, I think it feels like a hug. I'll go ahead and yeah, anyone else wants to add on?
I see you pondering, CJ, but you're still muted.
That's great because I wasn't completely sure where I was going with that. I think what it feels like, I can't float, but I imagine that justice in the outdoors feels like what it feels like to float. Because I'd be not floating, and I know it doesn't feel like that, so it definitely feels like the opposite of whatever I'm doing. So That's what I'm imagining. That's what I'm imagining it feels like.
Yeah. Thank you all. Because we're going to build off of that with this next question, thinking about so something, quote unquote, in the research, right? We talk about transformative experiences in the outdoors or in nature are really good for kids, for youth, for a variety of reasons, like caring about nature, conservation. Maybe it's a career path that they want to choose, you name it. At the same time, we also have transformative play and this element of a lot of the research behind play as well as something that's really critical and useful, not just extraneous, not just something that it's nice to have, but just like nature, not just nice to have, a necessity. So I'd love to get your take on um, this connection for semillitas, right, for kids, for youth, to the outdoors, to nature. Um, Based on your experience, based on your knowledge, like what does it provide? Not just the fun, but all of the things that either or you have seen, such as leadership development, health, intergenerational healing, like you name it. I'm just curious, kind of, what has been your experience and knowledge around the value and add and the power of transformative play in the outdoors. And Kevin, if you're ready, you can kick us off, and if not, pass it on.
Yeah, the first thing that came to mind is peace. So I feel like a lot of the youth that I've interacted with, including so today I'm a big brother, big sister, and I'm a big brother's big sisters, and my little the one thing that always comes back to me is he's in like a very noisy environment. He lives right next to um, a light rail system, and on one side and the other side is a major highway that cuts across Sacramento, and then on the other side is a main transportation corridor. So he's literally surrounded by traffic noise and light rail noises all the time. Um, and so, when we offer to go for a hike or anything like that, it's like peace. It's like noise pollution, getting away from that, and having a sense of maybe like putting your phone down and not having to like look at it all the time, and getting peace and a break from overstimulation. So I think peace is really what comes to mind as what um, one of the things that the outdoor space really provides for the youth. Yeah, I'll popcorn to whoever wants to go.
I'll go ahead. I'm like, should we rock paper scissors it out? Is that what's fair? Is that I'll go ahead. Sorry about that, TJ. So for me, I think transformative play really provides so much. It provides like a plethora of beautiful, warm feelings. It really is a safe space, and I think what's so unique about recreating in nature, especially with other people in your families, it really provides a trust in yourself, right? Of knowing, hey, I'm know right now I need to stop and maybe get some water. Maybe I need to stop and get a snack. It provides itself in others and knowing, hey, there's other people that are just looking here to explore and honor their identities in our world. It's in what we wear, right? Like you were mentioning earlier, sometimes we see some botas in the sand and we're like, wait a minute, what's going on here, right? We're like, yeah, these botas are for dancing. What are they doing at the beach? But just that safety, that pride. And I think it also allows you to honor that knowledge that we bring from the people that have came before us, right? Even if our parents of mine, have had limited interactions up until a couple years ago, but honoring the things that they taught me and little appreciations that they've had, and also honoring my own learnings and experiences by knowing, hey, these are still valid. Even if I came to the campa with my tiger cobija, I was still coming, and now I bring that knowledge of knowing, hey, maybe I should bring this or this. And I think it really does provide not only the safe space, but that community, that love, that belonging, and that sense of resiliency in yourself, just by soaking up life gives more life. And that's really the beauty, I think, of transformative play, living your life with more life and going from there.
I think that there's an element of like playing. You can't play unless you feel some sense of freedom. Like I don't think it's possible. Um, uh, Even if it's just in that small moment. And so I think the way the outdoors can be transformative for that. Like if you're providing those moments, like you're providing some safety for them to be able to express themselves and to explore, and you're doing it in the outdoors, which I think like some of the other folks in the conversation mentioned. I think it was Kevin who mentioned being so close to a place and being brought to it. Like if you're doing it in that way, it gives you a separation from where you might typically grow up and a chance to think about things different. And that's, I think the outdoors is a great space because it allows people to change their mindset to do that better health, better community. It gives a space that supports that supports all those things.
Yeah, I'm on the same boat with everybody here. When I think of the term transformative play, in the outdoors, I think about how do we transform the space and the activities to accommodate those that are in it. It doesn't look any one way, right? We have to really see the youth that are with us and figure it out. What is it that they need in that moment or during the duration of our time together to be seen, to be heard, to be uplifted, and just some of the thoughts that come into my head in regards to my experiences. you know I think about the time that I took some of my youth for the first time to Yosemite, some of my staff as well for the first time to Yosemite. And, we kind of, as we walked the trails, as we explored this space together, we had youth in the front of the line that, found some bikes that people left around and didn't return, and they were riding around, doing the thing that they usually do, like on their block, popping wheelies, doing all that. We had some youth in the middle who were just like amazed by the trees, and we had, that's my thing. I love talking about the plants and just getting super nerdy about all that. So I'm with those youth, just getting nerdy. And then we have, the youth in the back who, are still, they're still acclimating, they're still trying to figure all this out. And then, we have those, I have my coworkers who are in the back with them, so just creating that fruitful space to to curate the experience to each one of those, dynamic personalities.
Beautiful. Thank you all. So we're getting towards the close. I have two last questions for you all. And I'm going to give you kind of the prompt on the next one to come as I share a little bit more for our audience as well. The question is going to be basically, what is one thing you're really excited to share that you haven't gotten to share about yet on this topic? So start noodling. What's the one thing that you want to drop around that? And as you're kind of thinking about that, what's the thing that you're excited to share with the audience? For the audience, this is a pre-recorded session, so when you see this live, we won't be able to respond to your questions right away, but we still want to welcome and invite you to go ahead and drop some comments, responses as you're viewing this, anywhere where you're seeing it in the chat, because I know you're probably still going to get a response from one of us to be able to go back and say, ooh, let me comment on that. So just know that. Don't want it to be complete. I don't want you to feel it's a completely passive listening experience. Drop your comments, your responses, your reactions, questions maybe that come up in there as well. And I think we'll all look forward to still coming back and responding. So just as an audience, please invite you to do that. And so with that, I'm curious and excited to see what is one thing that each of you is kind of really excited to share. And Justin, why don't we start with you if you're ready, and pop it over from there.
Sure. I When I hear the question, the first thing that pops to my mind is, what is the thing that I get most excited about when I'm taking my youth out? And for me, the thing that I get most excited about is when they're asking me questions. It usually starts out, everyone's a bit shy, everyone, is getting acclimated to the space, but when they start to ask me questions or ask, the other staff questions, although it tends to be mostly me because the rest of my staff is always like, oh, Justin's the nature guy, ask him, um, I that's my most exciting moment, because I know now that they have kind of blessed me with being vulnerable and opening up their worlds or being open to opening up their worlds. And the idea that I can be that catalyst it's just so exciting for me, and I get to deepen that relationship and that rapport with that youth. So that's the most exciting thing for me. Popcorn it to CJ. Mute.
CJ, I think you're muted again.
Do I know how this works?
Mhm.
I just be trying to tell myself stop talking, mute, go quiet. Can you repeat the question, Jose?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a question for the audience as well, actually. If you're excited to tell us something about transformative play in the outdoors, drop it in there. But CJ and all, like, just what's one thing you're really excited that you haven't had a chance to share yet?
Um, I I'm trying to enjoy the simple things a little bit more. So like even if it's just uh um taking a walk outside while I'm on a work call or something like that. I think one of the most exciting things is I'll just talk a little bit about Boys in the Wood. I think we our programs and some of the retreats and activities we do, we're really able to bring people closer to um, these transformative ideas of play that we try and set up for kids. And so I'm excited that we're going to be having a retreat in Boston for Black men, and we're expanding to brown men soon in a couple of weeks. So I'm excited to be, hopefully we're bringing like 35 guys out there to do some healing, time in nature, and some fun stuff like that.
I can pop in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I myself have been sort of confined to my home. I've had a major injury in the past month and a half. I tore my Achilles, and I'm in the recovery path right now. And I'm really looking forward to spending time outdoors, and also kind of getting back to spending time with youth outdoors. One of the things that I find I'm very excited about is like that reintroduction back into sort of that volunteer life, and also just spending time outdoors. Um, it brings me a lot of personal joy because I'm a big kid, so I like being around other kids. So it's like sometimes look down upon with other adults, right? And you're a kid, so it's a perfect excuse for me to just get back to my safe space. And also to kind of unplug. Right now more than ever, I feel like we're really bombarded with a lot of media and a lot of things that it's sort of hard to escape sometimes, especially if you're confined in the home. So I'm just really excited to get back to the outdoors, and really excited to get back to working with youth outside, because I've seen the power of unplugging out and being outdoors, and how much peace that really brings you. So I'll save the best for last. Elizabeth.
Thank you, Kevin. I think that, something that I always share, whether it's with youth on a field trip, whether it's with parents, or whether it's out in community, outdoors event, I think it's really regenerating the lessons that, other people have taught us, regenerating that love, regenerating that community, and, restoring that belief in yourself and others, really, being curious at times. I think the beauty and that softness and kindness of the world that we have as children, sometimes seems to dim as we start aging, and being able to witness those experiences, especially through our semillitas eyes, seeing that wonder pop up, that curiosity, and just that pure love for being able to engage in something, that wonder to not only like be alive, but to really live, and allowing those experiences that you have to fill your cup and share those with others, and just honoring your inner child, engaging in play. There's so much that we can learn from our semillitas, and so much that we can learn from our young people at whatever age, engaging in that play and having fun, and having fun, but have fear, but do it anyways. I know I see kids doing some things sometimes, jumping off some things, running around, and I'm like, you know what, that looks a little scary, but be safe and have fun.
And actually, Liz, that's a perfect actually cue up to what's going to be the last question. And I was going to invite for you to kind of kick this off. And the question is, the last question is thinking about what is, semillitas are full of wisdom and leadership in their own way. So I'm curious to hear from each of you. What's one piece of wisdom that you've picked up from little semillita? Maybe it was an outing, an experience, a moment, whatever it might be, but it stuck with you. Like I remember, right? Kids are learning, of course, they're adapting. There might be new experiences, and yet they show up full of experience and leadership. I remember one time to that point, I saw back when I was an outdoor educator working with elementary school kids, and this kid was just jumping over a rock back and forth, completely entertaining himself. I went up, I was like, "What's going on?" He's like, I gotta do this. I gotta keep jumping because it's the way that I'm gonna make sure that the universe keeps going. And I was like, dang, okay, thank you. Yes, please. Keep doing it. I joined him later anyways, but I think it was I think CJ mentioned something like this earlier, something about being in the moment. It's just like it's a liberating feeling and it's a comforting and safe feeling, right, to be able to do this. And I think Kevin also mentioned, right, to be free of judgment in that way, like what it means for that. And it's stuck for me. Every now and then I'll either just jump and people ask me, "What are you doing?" I just I'm experiencing the moment. So a little wisdom. But Liz, why don't you kick us off and then kind of invite the next people to close us out on this one?
Yeah, so something that honestly I think about it a lot. Actually, just being a human, being alive, being here with feelings, emotions, all that gushy stuff that we had inside of us. This youth, we were doing presentations at schools, and this one youth, I think they were all freshmen. It was for freshman orientation, and we asked them. We did a couple wellness activities, so we led them through some breathing, some meditation, and then after we had them write, what does nature mean to youth? So youth, and one of the kiddos, we had them write it down, and he wrote, "It's okay to change, but it's okay to stay the same." And in that moment, I think, I just, it was like, whoa, like some most times I read, it's fun, like outside, it's relaxing, it's calming, all of which is true. But this young adult here really bringing in that mindfulness of, hey, we can learn so much from nature just to be, and I know someone mentioned earlier, to be more present. And when they said it's okay to change, but it's okay to stay the same. And then I, kind of pulled them to the side later because I was like, oh, what's going on? And then I asked them, I was like, hey, if you don't mind me asking, what did this mean? And things go the way that sometimes things just kind of are still. Sometimes things move around a lot. And it was just so beautiful to me that they honor the fact that sometimes you can stay the same. And sometimes it's okay to change. And then, the real recipe is knowing when to do which, right? But that's a whole nother thing. I'll go ahead and I'll pass it over to Kevin.
Yeah, I think I feel like different age groups kind of have like different wisdoms. Like you get the younger kids just love to ask why, like why, and it's like just questioning everything. And that's like a wisdom in itself, because I feel like as you get older, you kind of like lose that curiosity, and but also just questioning everything around you and how it works. And then as far as like maybe like the teens, like learning how to be comfortable and like doing what you got to do to be comfortable. For instance, like he likes to put on his headphones when he's uncomfortable. And that's okay. If we're doing something that we don't necessarily have to talk, he puts on his headphones. Maybe we're going for a walk or we're enjoying something, but just going back to your comfort space, wherever that is, and sometimes I know personally, sometimes I'm in places where I know what I need to do to get comfortable, but I'm like either too ashamed or, maybe if not feeling brave enough to do it. So 2 little bits of wisdoms from 2 different age groups that I interact with. I'll popcorn to Justin.
I think that my youth are consistently teaching me to just keep going and the importance of play. I feel like typically in our society, we can be segregated, via generation. And I feel privileged so often to be connected to these youth and just what they're going through, how they think, their resilience, because there's definitely things that I missed out on personally as growing up as a travieso, as someone who always had their own seat in the class, set to the side on the bus and all that. So like I didn't have a lot of opportunities for that play. So when I see like my youth, like just being free and playing and interacting with each other, man, there's so many little nuggets of wisdom and of just being that I take home with me at the end of the day that I can incorporate now as an adult, and man, I love it. And I'll popcorn to CJ. You're muted, CJ.
Okay, there's a program that I work with called the Native Youth Community Adaptation and Leadership Congress, where they bring Indigenous youth from all over the country together to work on climate change projects. And I think one of the lessons I learned from those youth and young people is just one of pride in who you are. I think this might have been mentioned a little bit before, but just pride in your culture, pride in your personality and how you approach the outdoors, and then openness to learning about that same sense of pride in others. So those are definitely lessons that I learned from those youth.
Well, thank you so much, CJ. And you all made me think that I admit that I'm not always ready to receive the wisdom that youth offer, but that doesn't make it any less true or impactful. We are at time, so that means we'll be closing out this conversation, but obviously the conversation doesn't have to stop here. We just want to invite all of our audience to, of course, continue to engage in other Semillitas event, drop comments, reaction, questions in this chat. Join a local Latino Outdoors team chapter as well as all of our peer partners such as Boys in the Woods and a bunch of other organizations and individuals and leaders that are just active in this work. So this is just one little tidbit of that. So deep gratitude and gracias to our panelists. I think they're just one such small but and yet powerful representation of the community that makes this work. All the corazones and seed bursts. Look at that. See, it's like right there. I don't know how that happened, CJ. Liz just has that.
I don't know how that happened either. I didn't even push anything. That's like my thing. I'm always putting a little heart. Oh,
love it.
Love it. Everywhere.
So with that, gracias to everyone. Thanks for tuning in. We hope to see you out there on both the figurative and literal trail. Thank you to everybody, to our panelists, and we shall see you again. Hasta luego.